All right, good afternoon. It's 4:02. We will begin the continuation of the Planning Committee meeting from yesterday, February the 2nd. So today is Wednesday, February the 3rd. And the first item on the agenda item number 4, proposed official community plan, city center area plan amendment, Lansdowne Shopping Center, final master plan land use. And we have Wayne Craig and Diana Nikolic. I believe you have a presentation for us.
Done meeting. Through the chair, yes, thank you. We do have a short presentation for you. I'm just sharing my screen. The presentation will provide you with a brief overview of the proposal. And, just need to, there we go. Okay, so the subject site for the application that you are being asked to consider is the home of the Lansdowne Center Shopping Mall. The site is approximately 50 acres in area and is bound by Number 3 Road, Alderbridge Way, Kwantlen Street, and Lansdowne Road. The application is limited to an official community plan and city center area plan amendment. There is no rezoning associated with the subject application. The Master Land Use Plan, associated bylaws, and implementation strategy that Council is being asked to consider are the product of a 3-stage amendment review process that was endorsed by Council. In October 2018, Council endorsed the Concept Master Land Use Plan, which gave staff direction to proceed toward finalizing the plan and associated bylaw amendments and to develop an implementation strategy. The Master Land Use Plan remains the same as the version that was endorsed by Council, and the subject report focuses on the associated supporting amendments and implementation strategy. The proposed plan and associated amendments only set a future vision. In order to redevelop the site, the applicant is required to submit incremental rezoning and development permit applications, all of which are subject to all city contributions and infrastructure requirements that are in place at the time of future redevelopment. This includes, but is not limited to, the requirements that are in place related to affordable and rental housing, public art, sustainability measures, and other amenity requirements that are adopted by Council. The proposed amendments are characterized as refinements rather than significant modifications to the existing official community plan and city center area plan. The applicant proposes to amend the location and distribution of the 10-acre major park that the city center area plan identifies for the subject site into 4 distinct yet related public spaces, and to reorganize on-site density and building heights while maintaining the overall blended on-site density that is permitted by the existing approved city center area plan. No increase in density is proposed. The proposed Master Land Use Plan is consistent with fundamental CCAP objectives to support transit-oriented development and to create a strong village center. The plan locates the majority of the major park and concentrates the greatest density and building heights within that portion of the site that is within a 5-minute walking distance of the village center. In addition, the special precinct design guidelines that are proposed as part of the subject application include a tower location plan. Towers are generally sited within the portion of the site that is within a 5-minute walking distance from Lansdowne Station, and towers that are greater than 35 meters in height are used to frame and identify park areas and significant public open spaces. The city center area plan includes density bonusing provisions that are used to negotiate and to secure city amenities. The proposed amendments maintain the density bonusing provisions as established by the existing city center area plan. Conditional to the developer taking full advantage of the density bonusing provisions, through future rezoning applications, the developer would be obligated to provide the city with on-site city-owned amenity to secure approximately 53,550 square feet of on-site indoor city-owned amenity space. Alternatively, Council can decide to forego an on-site amenity space, in which case an equivalent cash contribution would be secured from the developer at the time of rezoning. A separate process will be undertaken to facilitate Council's decision. The proposed special precinct development permit guidelines identify a landmark building at the site's premier corner At Council's discretion, the landmark building may be a city-owned community amenity building or a building that includes city-owned community amenity space. Key features of the proposed master land use plan, which will be secured at the time of the associated rezoning, include 10 acres of major park, providing 4 distinct yet related public spaces. Civic Plaza at the intersection of Lansdowne Road and Number 3 Road is intended to facilitate gathering, cultural activities, and pedestrian circulation. Lansdowne Linear Park, located along the site's Lansdowne Road frontage, is a component of a larger linear park network that will ultimately connect the Richmond Olympic Oval and waterfront with the Garden City lands. Center Park includes almost 5 acres of park space that is intended to accommodate active and passive neighborhood users, as well as festivals and major events. Neighborhood Plaza is intended to provide a space for informal gathering and smaller community events. A detailed major park plan will be prepared by Park Services staff through a separate process for Council's consideration. The plan also includes public open spaces, including plaza and green links that would introduce more than 2 acres of additional public open space. Transportation and infrastructure features include 3 new roads, a muse, expansion of the cycling network, 2 on-site mobility hubs, including an intermobility hub that would be introduced during the proposed first phase of development. The plan also includes development of and transfer to the city of 2 on-site low-carbon energy plants, as well as new and upgraded utility services. Special precinct design guidelines are proposed that intend to introduce 3 character areas that are linked along their southern edge by the major park. Station District is intended to contribute towards Number 3 Road's designation as a great street. Character-defining elements include well-defined pedestrian-oriented retail high streets, the prominent Civic Plaza, and transportation options. Center Park neighborhood is intended to contribute toward a healthy, connected system of parks and public open spaces and includes the precinct's major citywide serving green space, Center Park, that will accommodate daily users as well as large events. Kwantlen neighborhood is intended to supply a range of housing options, including mid-rise development that is characterized by park area and a network of green links. Conditional to Council supporting the attached amendment bylaws, the implementation strategy would guide redevelopment of the site over a number of years. Proposed development phasing reflects the developer's objectives to incrementally introduce major park and amenities while maintaining operation of the mall until replacement commercial floor area is constructed. Redevelopment is proposed to start in the northeast corner of the site with a series of mid-rise residential developments, followed by a large mixed-use development on the parcel abutting Number 3 Road. The development sequence would proceed around the existing shopping center until the remaining portions of the mall are fully demolished as part of proposed Phase 5. Acquisition of major park and public open space, transportation and servicing infrastructure, district energy and low-carbon energy sources will be secured incrementally through the redevelopment process, as outlined in the staff report. To conclude, the proposed official community plan and city center area plan amendment application includes refinements that propose to change the location and distribution of the 10-acre major park that the CCAP identifies for the subject site in order to establish 4 distinct yet related public spaces and to reorganize on-site density and building heights while maintaining the overall blended on-site density that is permitted by the existing approved city center area plan. Supporting the amendments will result in an expanded network of public open spaces and green links, supplementary pedestrian-oriented retail streets, provisions for alternative transportation and energy options, as well as new and updated transportation improvements and utility services. Thank you. We are prepared to respond to any questions.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. I will now open the floor to committee. Are there any questions from committee at this time? You can if you want, Councillor McNulty. Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, all right, I'll start, but I have a whole slew of questions on this, and given the magnitude of what we're dealing with today, as I read this, this is a final report to solidify the whole development. Is that not what I'm reading today?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, what you're dealing with today is the OCP for the site. The OCP will establish the vision. The current zoning of the property is for low-density commercial. In order to realize the vision, the applicant would apply for a series of subsequent rezoning applications to facilitate the 7-phase redevelopment of the property.
If given the nature of the information as it's coming out, because it comes out and it's come out in bits and pieces, to see it, it's very difficult to make decisions without having all the overall plan and strategy in front and the implications thereof. So when would that take place? Or is that already a done deal?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, I'm not quite sure I follow the question. If
Okay.
you could perhaps.
This supposedly is phase 7. I didn't realize we're to phase 7 already, but that's okay.
No, there are 7 phases to come.
Right, we are here if we look on page 947. My question is, now that we have a lot of information, and this is sort of the final phase before future development applications come, things change and things evolve. When do those things get vetted to put back to the developer?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, if I understand the question, each subsequent rezoning application will be required to achieve the city's amenity requirements of the day. So if the question relates to, for example, the provision of affordable housing on the site, each subsequent rezoning application will need to comply with council policy of the day. The current policy is 10%. If that policy was to change in the future to a higher percentage, the developer will be obligated to achieve those higher percentages.
Okay, but
does that answer your question?
That gives me the answer that I would expect from you. But like I say, if things change, what if I said I wanted 20% low-income housing in this area because it's such a massive thing and be working over the next one, and I wanted market rental housing, I wanted 30% market rental housing, when would because I now have a picture of the whole thing and some impacts and implications, and I'm projecting what the city will look like in the downtown core in the next 5 or 10 years, where would that take place if I wanted to put that back to the developer?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, the proposal before you does not entrench any of those things beyond typical city policy. The staff advice would be to follow that process, as it would enable amenity objectives of the city to evolve with the redevelopment of the property. For example, you may recall that we dealt with a rezoning proposal a number of years back where a developer was looking to lock in the percentage of affordable housing being provided. Staff advice at that time was that that would be a bad deal for the city, that it would be a better approach to have those amenities provided at time of redevelopment rather than to specify what they are now.
At what stage will we see a business plan for commercial from these people, given I know they're going to develop, et cetera, in the city? I'm looking at the city as a whole, not just this project and the implications on all of us, all the residents of the city. Will we ever see that before we put final approval to anything?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, this plan would facilitate potentially 690,000 square feet of non-residential space on the property. That is consistent with what is currently permitted under the existing OCP for the site.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, I appreciate the space and I appreciate your answer. I'm not criticizing anything there. But my concern is the nature of the businesses. You know, many of our stores are already out in Walnut Grove or out in Semiahmoo or whatever. They've left Richmond, and we do not have the businesses that maybe we should retain within our community. And that's what I'm wondering. Given the nature of things, how many of businesses that people frequent at Lansdowne will jump ship and look somewhere else because they can't afford to stay there? Are we ever going to see that kind of thing?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, in terms of the makeup of that approximately 690,000 square feet of non-residential space, that would be detailed in future rezoning applications and development permit applications.
Okay. The other question, have we done a population projection for this site in the downtown core? Or have they done a population projections?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, yes, the city center area plan included a population projection. We do have population projections for all of the villages within the city center area plan. This proposal does not increase the population projections for Lansdowne Village. In terms of the total population amount, I do not have that information with me.
That's okay.
I'll refer that question to Ms. Nicolak. Through the chair, we're estimating that there would be a little over 8,000 people potentially entering into this neighborhood.
Okay. And have we done an impact study of how that will transpose in terms of everything from transportation, mobility, livability, quality of life in the downtown core?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, yes, all of those projections were done when the city center plan was prepared in 2009.
Okay, well, okay, things have changed a lot since 2009. That's the only problem. On our page 495, there is it says, conditional council approval, the proposed final master plan with facility, et cetera. And then at the bottom, there's a line saying, excluding any potential city-owned amenity space obligations. What is that? How do you explain that?
Through the chair, what it means is that if you do elect to have on-site amenity, that would be part of the total floor area allocated towards non-residential uses. It would not be supplementary density. It comes out of their non-residential component.
Okay. What if we, given the change, and I saw that on the next page, the lists that supposedly the city is getting, and the benefits of the supposed amenities. A number of those things are things that they already have to do to make the place livable and viable. There are really not any benefits to the people of Richmond. And I guess I'm wondering, how do we examine what is, and we see approximately 4 hectares, 10 acres of park, given the nature of 8,000 people, et cetera. What if we want 15 acres? Things have changed since when we talked about this 10 years ago. What if we said we wanted 15 acres in a different site?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, the 10 acres is consistent with what is identified currently on the property. In terms of how that 10 acres results or relates to the city's overall parks objectives, I'd refer that question to one of our parks representatives on the call today, Todd or Jason.
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, to follow up on that question, the overall park planning follows the overall kind of city master plan, and it was calculated based on a percentage, 3.25 acres per 1,000 population. So this is part of the original plan, which is again consistent with the OCP as well as the OCCAP previously established.
I know we're dealing with the OCP, and the OCP obviously needs to be amended. We haven't amended it for many years. This is the point I'm getting to, is we're following what it does according to the textbook, but I'm trying to look at this in terms of a realistic development that has a quality of life for people, not only on site, but the rest of Richmond. When this thing is fully built out, you'll never get in the downtown core. We need to be looking at the total implications on this. We've got two major developments in the community, and I think we need to be looking at them in an overall perspective of how they affect it. I know our original plan, we wanted 160,000 people in the downtown core. I think we're probably getting on that when that was to be by 2085, and I projected years ago that we would be there by 2045. And I would think we're probably in the center core, we're close to that already. So I guess that's how I was looking at it. I'm not criticizing your report. You've done due diligence, you've done good. But things have changed, and we need to look at the evolving Richmond and where Richmond is going in terms of this. This is probably the last big development that impacts 250 or 225,000 people right now in Richmond, not just those in the downtown core, those at Terra Nova, those at Audlin Road, those at South Richmond, et cetera. So I think we've got to be very careful if this is stage 7 to make sure our feedback goes there. I'll stop there, Chairperson, but I'll have some further things to say later.
Thank you. Councillor Day.
Thank you much, Madam Chair. So we hear again and again about the 10-acre park, but it really isn't a 10-acre park. It is a 4.71-acre center park.
Can you speak a bit closer to your microphone?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Okay. Thank you. So in the report, it talks about there is a 10-acre park land sale. But in reality, there is a 4.71-acre park in the center. I think it's called the Center Park. And my question is, the rest of the 5 acres is going to be spread around the complex. How do you as staff see the public using those other areas?
Through the chair of the council, the 10 acres is the total of all the park components. As indicated in Ms. Nicklick's presentation, there's an additional 2 acres of public open space that would be provided for pedestrian routes, etc. In terms of the utilization of the 10 acres and the 4 major components that were described in the presentation, I'll refer that question to Todd or Jason.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, in terms of your question about the rest of the park outside of the 4.1 Center Park, the determination of the park areas as well as the locations and size and shapes were determined through the previous process when we mentioned the phase 1 to 6. In terms of going through the preliminary master land use plan, the public consultation, etc., for the benefits of not only the park spaces but also the future residents and users. The rest of the area outside of the Central Park are the Lansdowne Linear Park, the Civic Plaza, as well as the corner neighborhood park at the corner of Quanland and Lansdowne Road. These would facilitate other uses, for example, gathering spaces in the Civic Plaza, linear transportation through the Lansdowne Linear Park, as well as smaller neighborhood uses in the neighborhood park in the southeast corner of the site.
Thank you for that. Therein lies my concern that we're saying it's going to be a 10-acre park, but in reality, community uses within the residential area. The only real exception is the Quanland Park, which, let's see, I've got it at sorry, I'm just trying to find it here. It's pretty small. It's like 1 acre, 1.5 acres. And so I can see, the Portland students using that part for sure, being that it's on the southeastern part of the Lansdowne. So I'm a little concerned about our messaging, truth be told. I don't feel that it's really reflective of the actual use. So I'd like to see that changed. So if we go forward with this, I think that messaging needs to be broken up, and we need to really clearly and openly and transparency change that. My next question is I'm looking at the density. So the western 1/3 urban center is going to be 2.5 FAR, which is 47 meters high. The central 1/3 urban core is going to be 3.0 FAR, which is about 35 meters high. What I'm not clear on is the easterly 1/3 urban center. What is the FAR? The maximum height is 25 to 35 meters.
Through the chair to Councillor Day, the density does transition to a lower density as you move eastward. The western or the eastern 1/3, the overall FAR is estimated to be 2.1.
Okay, so it's actually more than the westerly 1/3. I thought it was tapering down as we went further away from the SkyTrain.
That is the case. The western third, the applicable FAR is 3. The central 1/3, the applicable FAR is 3.14. The reason why that has a higher number is because that is where the majority of the park is located. The west or the eastern third, the applicable density is 2.1 for a total density across the site of 2.77.
Okay, sorry, can you refer me to the page in the report where those numbers are? Because that's not the numbers that I got the first time I read this.
PLN 500.
Okay, I'm going to review that. Thank you. My next question is regarding school boards. We don't have an opportunity on this site for a school site. I understand it's cost prohibitive. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, the school board has been heavily involved in the consultation process for this plan. The school board has identified through their planning process that there is no need for a school site on this property. They have identified there may be a need for a school site on the property post-2033. The area plan that is before you has been considered on the basis that should the school board acquire a site on this property, the transportation networks will support that. We have had preliminary discussions with the school board about potential locations of a school that would allow for co-location with city park facilities.
So no site has been determined at this time. Is that correct?
That is correct. The plan makes allowances for that to occur should it be warranted by the school board. Present planning from the school board is a school site is not warranted.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have little faith in that. Is there any chance that staff have talked to the Ministry of Education?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, our conversations have been with School Board 38.
Okay, that's a red herring
not our
for
role,
me.
Councillor Day. Our role is not to deal with the Ministry of Education on school sites. That's the purview of the school district and the school board. Next question,
Well,
please.
Thank you for clearing that up for me, Madam Chair. So in terms of the Vancouver Airport Authority, we have AZR regulations that limit the height. Have the Vancouver Airport Authority been cooperative, and what is the feeling that staff have regarding their input?
Similar to the school board, the Airport Authority has been heavily involved in the consultation process. The Master Land Use Plan before you does reflect the potential AZR application that YVR has submitted to Transport Canada and is consistent with recent amendments to the City Centre Area Plan that were made, I believe, late 2019 to reflect that application.
Okay. So parking in Richmond Center Mall, we've seen a development that's going to allow for 2 levels of underground parking, which is going to, I think, it's 3,000 cars. What's the underground parking plan for this development site?
Through the chair, the developer is currently thinking that the western third of the site would be developed with at least 2 levels of parking below ground level. And they are looking at options for the remainder of the site. As this process has worked its way through, we're seeing more and more developments that are increasing their levels of parking below ground, and this developer is tracking that.
Okay. Regarding getting back to parkland, the Civic Plaza is 1.51 acres, but it's going to be paved. Is this still considered park site?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, all of the park identified on the property would be considered park asset, city park asset. In terms of the park spaces, there would be future planning processes to be brought forward for council to identify what those specific designs are. In terms of the preliminary thoughts around a urbanized park on that corner, I'd refer the question to Todd or Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. To Chair to Councillor Day, in terms of the amount of hardscape for the Civic Plaza, it was determined based on 2 factors. One, the close location to the Canada Line Lansdowne Station. That facilitates not only circulation but also any future intention for cultural and gathering events. Second is that it's not any different from any other major size parks in the city center. For example, Aberdeen Center, the higher density the parks are, we plan for different percentages of hard surfaces versus green spaces for that reason.
So it's about using the space, not necessarily having green space. Is that correct?
As part of the decision. Yes.
Okay. Now, my second to last question is, what is the cumulative effect of all of the developments that have already been approved or are about to be approved on the overall traffic gridlock situation on number 3 Road, Garden City, Lansdowne? What have we allowed for the cumulative effect?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, in conjunction with the adoption of the City Centre Area Plan, there was also a City Centre Transportation Plan. The 2 plans read together in terms of the ongoing maintenance, or I guess monitoring of that plan. I'd refer the question to Mr. B.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Day. Yes, the overall complete build-out of City Centre has been accommodated in the plans that have been made for the OCP. So we're quite comfortable that the development will be accommodated transportation-wise through the full development of the area.
Okay. And my last question is, yesterday in Planning Committee, we looked at the Talisman Park proposal, which is Key Island Way and number 3 Road, and we made a motion that the builder be required to on-title register that every one of the condos, and there's thousands of them, must be allowed to be rented in perpetuity. Has there been any discussion with the developer about allowing this in this site?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, the developer is well aware of the meeting that occurred yesterday. They have had preliminary discussions with staff. Should such a request be made, they would be amicable to such an agreement.
Oh, that's very good news. And I believe Councillor Liu also wanted to add to that there be no age restrictions, so you can't have like a non-family friendly building. Did they indicate they would be supportive of that as well?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, well then I would want to move that amendment, Madam Chair, when the time comes. Thank you so much.
Councillor Steves.
Yeah, thank you. I want to follow up the question from Councillor McNulty. I was very unhappy with the meeting last night and what we decided with Talisman and the low building with a minimum of affordable rental housing. And the question I have is that if we chose to increase the amount of rental housing when the zonings come up and require, say, 20%, can we amend the plan to increase the height of the buildings that are further east? In other words, to accommodate more rental and low-income housing. It's my opinion that very few people are going to own their own home in the next 20 or 30 years. They're going to be looking for rental housing. People just can't afford the prices even out in the Fraser Valley now. And we're going to have to provide it in the city.
Through the chair to Councillor Steves, yes, that would be within Council's prerogative as part of the future rezoning application should they wish to see increased height for rental housing to amend the OCP in conjunction with those rezoning applications.
And if we didn't increase the height there, could we make it can we make it a requirement to increase the percentage on what's being approved tonight?
Through the chair to Councillor Steves, in terms of the package before you, the recommendation is to secure those types of community amenities as part of future rezoning applications. So there is nothing in this plan that would lock in a percentage of rental housing. That would be dealt with through council policy of the day as part of any future consideration of the rezoning application.
Okay, I've got a question because I'm going to make a referral at the end of this if I get the wrong answer. I thought when we dealt with the Richmond Center proposal and it was a rezoning had already gone through and they agreed to 10%, but I thought we made a referral at that time to consider raising the percentages to 15 and 20%, and I don't know, was that a referral? Or?
There is a referral, and I was going to ask staff that as well. Yeah, there is a referral out on that.
Yeah, because we had that for last night and tonight.
Through the chair to Councillor Steves and Councillor McPhail, there are multiple referrals with respect to rental housing currently with staff. One is to look at the percentage of low-end market rental that is included to see if the 10% threshold can be increased. There is also referrals related to market rental and what can be done in terms of increasing the supply of market rental in the city. Currently, we have an incentive-based approach policy, which is in the OCP, which does provide for additional density exclusive for market rental. And the 10% requirement for low-end market rental is entrenched. In terms of timing of those referrals, I see Ms. Somerville has turned on her camera, so I'll refer the low-end market rental review to her.
Ms. Somerville?
Through your worship, yes, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Steves, yes, we have the existing referral. Staff are starting to progress in terms of doing work on that. Their requirement is to do some economic analysis, and we anticipate that we will have something back to you in Q2.
Okay, thank you. My second question and final question is this development has a tremendous amount of rooftops, and I notice there's some rooftop greenery on some of them. What is the proposal for all of the rooftops? It seems to me in the agricultural plan we're dealing with right after this one, there's a recommendation for rooftop agriculture, and we've also had proposals simply for rooftop parks and gardens, and we've also had proposals for rooftops with solar panels. So is every rooftop going to have something on it, and what would it be?
Through the chair to Councillor Steves, the detailed design of future buildings is not being worked through at this time. That would be dealt with through the future rezonings and development permits. There would be opportunities to explore all of the objectives that you've alluded to as part of those future applications.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for all the work you've done on this. This has been many years that you've been putting work into this project. You know, there's been talk from some of the councillors, certainly Councillor Steves mentioned it, that phase one is looking to have lower level buildings, and that sort of matches the whole plan to have more people live closer to the Canada Line station. However, if we were to do every how many years do we do an OCP update or review that whole thing? How often do we look at our whole OCP and update that?
Mr. Tonkin?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, there is no formal timeline for a regular cycle of official community plan updates. There used to be a requirement for every 10 years. Now that it is left to the discretion of local government in terms of the timing of those updates.
Okay, so, looking at the project, there's presumably going to be an OCP amendment at some point in this, where there may be changes to the density and those kind of things. And because my understanding is we don't want to do it on the fly and we don't want to just keep pushing density around, but we do want to do it in a thoughtful manner, and so that's why you have the applicant prepare this whole plan as a long-term strategy. Moving forward, we decided we do want to greatly increase the rental space and add density. That's sort of better looked at in a broader OCP type thing, and that's why we're making an OCP amendment now to change the shape of the park, so we're thinking of it holistically.
Through the chair, that is generally correct, and I'd like to reiterate what Mr. Craig and Ms. Nicolak provided earlier, which is that endorsing a master plan now without a number of specific details does give council the flexibility in the future that should things change over time, any development will meet the policy of the day. And as you say, Councillor Liu, through the chair, with a 20-year lifespan of a development, that maintains council's flexibility to ensure that the needs are appropriate at that time. And they would, in fact, be consistent with any OCP that was in place at that time as well.
Okay, so then it would be a holistic look at the whole piece of looking at the needs for sewage and pools and, like, schools and what have you to support if you're going to really push in a lot of density here. Is that correct?
Through the chair, as Mr. Craig provided earlier, the current proposal is not proposing to change the densities permitted under the current CCAP, but should council direct staff to do that in the future, then this development would follow along behind any of those OCP updates in the future to make sure that council's future vision of density and services are met at that time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I had a question. In the presentation, it talked about the approximately 53,000 of square feet of indoor amenity space that's kind of reserved in that southwest corner, and that at some point in the future, council has the option of taking that or taking cash, and it would be a separate process. So when in the timeline of things would that be? Because we know there are many groups that are interested in indoor space, and we've had lots of requests for that. So what timeline would we be looking at to do that?
Through the chair, there's the selection of a potential amenity on the site would be triggered by future rezoning applications. Prior to the consideration of the first rezoning application on the property, we would be in a position, hopefully at that time, to identify what the long-term city facility needs are within the city center, provide some options to council, and identify a recommendation as to whether to pursue a specific option or a cash in lieu in order to allow the city to facilitate construction of a facility at another location.
So when you say to determine long-term needs, so there would be a public consultation then on that?
In terms of the selection of the site, that could be a possible outcome in terms of at council's direction to involve public consultation. Obviously, there are city needs that we are aware of that will need to be considered. Some of those needs do have locational criteria that also needs to be considered, but public consultation around the selection of a future amenity, should it be desired, is something that is well within council's realm.
All right, thank you. Now, Councillor Steves, your hand is up. Is this another question?
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. Now, I see no other speakers from committee right now, and we do have a list of registered speakers, so I will go to them. First, I have Ella Huang from Richmond Center for Disability. Are you there, Ms. Huang? I see her down there.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You can just identify yourself and you'll have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon, councillors and members of the Planning Committee. My name is Ella Huang. I'm the Executive Director of the Richmond Center of Disability. And since 2019 January, RCD has been a tenant of Props within Lansdowne Center. As you may already know, the RCD was established in 1985 through the joint effort of United Way of the Lower Mainland, the City of Richmond, and a number of people with disabilities from the community. As both a service provider for people living in our community with a disability, as well as a current tenant of Lansdowne Center, I'm pleased to say that Prop has done a good job to engage RCD and people with disabilities in the development of the Master Land Use Plan in a meaningful way. In my view, this engagement has resulted in the plan that will create a truly inclusive environment in line with the RCD's values and vision for Richmond's future. We look forward to continuing our engagement in this project moving forward. So the plan presented today has several features that will benefit those in our network and community. Firstly, the plan has been designed so that majority of the residential and community uses are located within 5 minutes of Lansdowne Station. This greatly improves accessibility to the site and helps remove barriers for those with mobility challenges. Additionally, I understand the overall street and pedestrian network has been designed to accommodate those with accessibility challenges by incorporating large sidewalks and enhanced street crossings to ensure safety and ease of connectivity. Finally, I also like to commend Prop and the city for integrating the new city park within the plan that will include provisions for flexible programming. This open space will be extremely beneficial to RCD and our network for recreational use, as well as the space to host some of educational and community programs, as a continuation of the ongoing support from Prop to build an inclusive society. Overall, the RCD believes this is a great project for the city's future, one that will benefit many in our community and not just those living with disabilities and mobility challenges. I look forward to seeing this project move forward in the planning process, and thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Ms. Huang.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker on my list is Federico Puskar, Bunt and Associates Engineering. Are you with the applicant?
Yes, I'm with the applicant. Sorry, I was not. I'm here to answer any questions regarding transportation, not necessarily to give a
Okay, that's
speech.
good. I just want to make sure. So there are a number of people here who are with the applicant, and we'll have the applicant, give the applicant the opportunity to speak at the end. So James Godwin is with the applicant. So we have James Wong, Director, T&T Supermarket. Hello, Mr. Wong.
Hi, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
Oh, thank you. This is James Wong.
Yes, I'll just introduce yourself, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, Chairman and Councillor. This is James Wong from T&T Supermarket. I'm the Director, Finance and Real Estate. So it's my pleasure to have today's chance to speak about this project on behalf of T&T and also Vanport. So I'd like to speak about 3 points. First is T&T experience with Vanport. Our tenant-landlord relationship starts from 2018, and over these 2.5 years, I would say we have a good time with the Vanport in terms of meeting property issues. And I would consider they are professional and are accommodating to our needs while upholding the property interest at large. So T&T has no hesitation to continue our relationship or recommend to anyone who needs a reference. So that is the first. And secondly, T&T, very much like our store in Lansdowne, has proven to be a very successful one on meeting the local community needs and requirements. This is particularly true during pandemic time when we enhance our safety standards in order to keep open and support the society, which we think is our honor and also the duty. We like to continue serving Richmond by being part of this plan and maintain a close relationship with all the citizens we have lived with for over 23 years. And lastly, I'd like to say that this redevelopment plan actually do pair up with the TNT roadmap. Actually, TNT is scheduled to finish the third phases of our central facilities expansion by May 2021 this year, which including a new central kitchen and central bakery and a big freezer cooler warehouse. This $35 million project in Golden Way enable a huge jump on our food production capacity while comply with all the food safety standards. So this facility is TNT answer to future Greater Vancouver region demand, and certainly I believe Richmond City should be part of this. So thank you, everyone. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. Okay, we have Jesse Galees, who's with the applicant, John Roston, Richmond Rental Housing Advocacy Group. Hello, Mr. Roston.
Now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. Thank you very much to the chair for allowing me to speak again today. Although this is the OCP document and details of the housing will be decided later when rezoning applications are considered, there's a fair amount of information in the document about some of the requirements that are likely to be discussed at that time. And we believe that it would save a lot of time, effort, and expense if Council could now, informally at least, state what type of housing it would like to see when the Phase 1 rezoning application is made. Phase 1 of the project is the low-rise housing in the northeast corner of the property. This is the type of housing most suitable for young families, many of whom cannot afford to buy and must rent. And we would like to see the Phase 1 housing to be both family-friendly and entirely market rental and below-market rental. So instead of the idea as each phase comes along of having it have a mix of strata condos, market rental and below-market rental, we think that there should be an indication right now that this entire Phase 1 should be market rental and below market rental, and then as the rezoning for further phases comes along, then the mix would be decided at that time. And just a special thank you to Councillor Steeves for just mentioning the huge importance of rental housing as we move forward. On another subject, we also note the extensive details in the document on parking, which makes it clear that the current free parking will become pay parking. And pay parking means that future Lansdowne shoppers will invade surrounding streets and free parking lots to get free parking instead of having to pay for it. So our position is that if you're putting in so many details right now about parking, you should put in that there would be a minimum of 2 hours free parking in any Lansdowne parking spaces that serve commercial establishments. Thanks very much.
Well, we can certainly ask the applicant their plans for parking. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Roston. Okay, we have Juiced Bakers with the applicant. Kim McGinnis is with the applicant. Lisa Rupert, YWCA. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Lisa Rupert, Vice President of Housing and Violence Prevention with the YWCA Metro Vancouver.
Great. And you have 5 minutes, and you can start now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. The YWCA is really supportive of the proposed master land use plan and of the inclusion of affordable housing. And we've been in discussions with VanProp about the possibility of the YWCA's involvement in that. Having housing situated in a central location close to transit, shopping, and green space is ideal for any family, but it's especially beneficial for families with low and modest incomes. The YWCA has been owning, developing, and operating nonprofit housing in Metro Vancouver since 1979. And our housing is for single mothers and their dependent children, many of whom have left situations of family violence, because we know not only how great the need is, but how big the impact is. Single mothers on average have the lowest income of all family types in British Columbia. And with the high cost of market housing and long wait lists for affordable housing, they often live in precarious housing situations where they're paying more than they can afford in rent, they have to move frequently, and often are not able to stay in their own communities. This is very stressful for mothers, but the frequent moves, changes in schools, and the loss of friends and support systems can have a negative impact on children's well-being. We believe that affordable housing in the communities that single mothers and their children are already connected to is the foundation for them to thrive. Rather than having to constantly focus on finding ways to try and juggle their impossible financial situations, they can focus on health, education, and are able to fully participate in the larger community, not only taking advantage of all that it has to offer them, but also what they have to give back to it. The tenants moving into our newest housing community in North Vancouver, for example, and they're moving in next week, include women who work in retail, healthcare, childcare, and education, and they're all able to stay in North Van and continue to work there. I also think that the proposed plan is an ideal fit for our holistic, community-focused housing model. We have community development coordinators embedded in all of our housing sites to facilitate tenant meetings, tenant events, and help connect women to YWCA and community resources that support the families with their needs and their goals. We also provide practical supports like bursaries to further education, back-to-school knapsacks and school supplies for every child every September, and emergency food gift certificates. I know it's still very early on in the planning stages, but we really look forward to being part of future conversations with VanProp and the City of Richmond to bring affordable housing to this central community hub. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have a question for Ms. Somerville. I know that in the past we have had specific demographic housing. A couple of them come to mind. So what is the process as we look at affordable housing or low-end market rental housing, to select a specific demographic? Or Mr. Spencer, either one of you.
To the chair. Thank you. To the chair, we would have a discussion with the nonprofit housing provider as well as the developer in terms of what the needs are. We would be looking at the demographic needs that we have and the information that we have for Richmond in terms of housing needs and ensure that we are fulfilling kind of the priority groups that are outlined within our affordable housing strategy. Our staff often update that information as well, so we would look at that information that we have for Richmond as well as talking to the other housing providers and who they've been providing housing to.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we have Maggie Young is with the applicant. Mike Homanuk is with the applicant. Okay, Rebecca Swaim, Trinity Western University, Richmond.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me, Madam Chair?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead. Just you have 5
Great.
minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, Councillors, and committee members. It is my honor to share some remarks on behalf of Trinity Western University and wish to highlight the presence of our University President, Dr. Mark Husbands, and Vice President, Dr. Phil Lair, who are also joining virtually today. I'm grateful to be able to contribute perspective as one who lives, works, and plays in Richmond. And since moving here in 2012, I have observed the importance of Lansdowne Mall as a key community gathering space with cultural celebrations like RCCS's Spring Festival programs to the recent RCMP's annual toy drive-through for the Richmond Christmas Fund as just a few examples of Lansdowne events. And so continuing as a commercial destination in the heart of Richmond is important,
but the continued use of this space for engagement in this flourishing community is equally significant. When Trinity Western University was looking to launch a new urban center, it was evident that Richmond provided a unique combination that would be attractive to university students. Where other universities have chosen to set up urban campuses in downtown Vancouver or Burnaby, TWU chose to open its urban campus in Richmond. Since opening the doors at our Mineru location in 2015, TWU Richmond has experienced tremendous growth, so much so that we outgrew our original space within 4 years. The old Future Shop space in Lansdowne Mall provided a short-term solution to this problem. Opening in January 2020, the acquisition of critically needed space at Lansdowne Mall enabled us to respond to the market demand. Today, close to 1,000 undergraduate and master's students call TWU Richmond their academic home. TWU is committed to building its presence in Richmond and serving the needs of local and international learners for decades to come. Looking ahead to the next 50 to 100 years, TWU plans to bring additional high-quality undergraduate and graduate programs here. In so doing, we seek to build on the relationships forged with many local businesses and nonprofits. We expect to continue contributing to the vibrancy of Richmond. However, projections suggest that we will once again reach capacity at our present 2 sites within the next 5 years. Furthermore, we recognize the value that would be added for us to be able to offer university dorm-style or affordable apartment-style housing in or around TW Richmond, as we currently do on our main Langley campus. And so our university has begun exploring possibilities to keep us growing in a sustainable way in the city of Richmond. TWU is encouraged by our conversations with the development team at Van Prop as we think through the implications of the loss of the current Lansdowne Mall space while we imagine our future place alongside or within this new development. Van Prop's proposed intentionally designed community is very attractive to the university audience and would be ideal for Trinity Western University's larger campus in Richmond. Pre-pandemic, the Van Prop team met with a focus group comprised of our current students. The feedback from these students on the Lansdowne redevelopment plan was overwhelmingly positive, with keen interest in the types of housing being proposed. Increasingly, access to affordable housing is becoming a defining issue for university prospects. Proximity to the SkyTrain, access to the airport, and downtown core are key features for our global audience. The combination that the Lansdowne site affords is very unique within the Richmond landscape. There are few other sites in the urban center of Richmond that could offer a growing university such as ours this potential blend of strategically placed classrooms, entry-level housing, and world-class community gathering space. We appreciate the value that the City of Richmond places on education and trust that the committee will take the needs of institutions of higher education and their university-age students into consideration as you assess the merit of mixed-space developments such as the one proposed today. Trinity Western University is hopeful we will not find ourselves in a position where lack of urban expansion space forces us to engage in conversation with other municipalities as necessary to support this growing and vibrant community of university students in Richmond. In conclusion, Trinity Western University hopes the committee will move forward with the Lansdowne Master Land Use Plan, believing it will further the vision of the City of Richmond in becoming, quote, the most appealing, livable, and well-managed community in Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I believe there are a couple of questions. Hang on, sorry. Councillor Day, did you have a question for the speaker?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much, Ms. Swan, for this presentation. Would you be looking for some kind of long-term commitment regarding lease space for the Trinity University? And would you be looking for long-term opportunities for students to stay in residences on site?
Thank you, Councillor Day. We are exploring and have had discussions and continue to have discussions exploring both of those possibilities.
Okay, when the applicant comes forward, I will ask those questions for you once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Steves, did you have a question for the speaker?
Yes, I do. Trinity Western was one of the very first groups we asked to put some green space on the roof, and I'm just wondering how, I saw some of it when the initial phases. I just wondered how it worked out.
Thank you, Councillor Steves. There is green space at the Quintet building that the developer put in there above the City Centre and Trinity Western.
And what do you have on the green space?
I would defer to others to provide you a specific, detailed inclusion of that, as I'm fairly removed from the process of the specifics above, as that's not accessed by our unit. It's with the Quintet development that they have access to that space.
I was the liaison to the City Center Community Association, and they worked with Quintet. And from, I think it's the 5th floor, you can access a 2-acre green space. So there's housing that, there are doors open to the green space, there's grass, there's children's play areas, there's a walking path. It's quite a beautiful hidden gem.
Mm-hmm. The reason I asked the question, that's what I'm referring to, that we need on all the developments in Richmond from here on in. Either that or some other rooftop uses on tops of the buildings and tops of the parking lots and so on. So thank you very much for doing that.
All right, that's all the questions for Ms. Swain. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker I have is Stephen DeRoche, Hub Cycling.
Thank you very much.
Can you hang on just a minute? All right, you want to try again?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Well, there's a lot of...
I'll turn off the speaker. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you. And
all right, thank you.
You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'm the chairperson of the Hub Cycling Local Committee in Richmond. It's been a committee that has met every month now for about 12 years to discuss issues related to cycling in our beautifully flat land that we live in here. If those who have not heard of Hub Cycling, it's a not-for-profit organization that's been around since about 1998. There's about 3,000 members. In Richmond alone, I report to about 80 Hub members here that find cycling to be very important here in Richmond. There's 10 local committees around, Vancouver, Burnaby, Surrey, Delta, all those other places, and our mission is to get more people cycling more often. As far as this project concerned, the master plan proposed by Vanprop, they approached our committee in the middle of 2019 for some feedback on the work they're proposing here, and we're very happy for that. And I'd just like to let them know that we like the plan. We've scrutinized it over the last couple of weeks, the document you have before us, a couple of members and I. We went page by page, and we're very supportive of the proposal for the cycle paths, for the safety, the cycle stations that they're proposing. Personally, myself, I've been living here for 29 years. I actually moved here because of the ability to cycle here, and just because I started collecting statistics on myself, I've cycled 57,000 kilometers in Richmond since 2002. Right now, when I was at Lansdowne just today, as a matter of fact. There's very few cycling amenities there, very few bike racks around. So when I saw the plan before us here, it's spectacular as far as looking after the safety and security of cyclists. Looking at the plan in relation to the city center area plan, I notice how it fits as a nice puzzle piece that will allow connectivity from the Garden City lands to basically to the Richmond Olympic Oval and beyond. So not only thinking as external residents like myself to access the new development, but also future residents that they can access safely other cycling infrastructures and amenities that Richmond has to offer to them. Basically, we're very appreciative of the separated bike lane that's being proposed on Cooney, on the north-south route, and also on that linear park that we see is going to go in on, that's being proposed on the Lansdowne Road section there. So we're very excited about that. It's a long-term project, so we're aware of it, and we hope we can stay engaged with the company as future proposals are put forth for the development of the network to continue making it safe for all of us who choose to cycle and move around Richmond in a very environmental-friendly way. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Now, I do have, Todd Stewart is with the applicant. Now, that is the end of the list of speakers for this item. Did I miss anybody? Was there anybody else who wanted to speak to this item? All right, so I don't see anybody else. So now I will allow the applicant to come forward and say a few words. And there was a couple of questions.
Hello, can you see me?
Yes, I can, Mr. McInnes.
Okay, it's Kim McInnes. Listen, first of all, I want to thank Planning Committee and the other participating councillors in listening to our Planning Committee request and our report. You know, we have been at this for a very long time, and we believe that we've actually been able to craft a project over a long time period, which is difficult and challenging. We know that, but will ultimately meet all the needs of the community, the residents, the amenities, the interconnectivity, and the residents, the potential residents. Our goal is to have people living there in the community. We are building the community as a long-term asset for us. We've been very involved in the market for a very, very long time, and we're committed to market, and we've shown our commitment to the community as well. And we've had a great working relationship with staff, and you know, we've been working out some finer points, but we're very encouraged. We know there are some hurdles that we will be faced with as we go through the rezoning, but we know that, you know, once we get past the approval of the OCP and the CCAP, well then, you know, we can start working through that, because as everyone has mentioned, including planning staff, you know, there will be other opportunities to revisit the specific issues on a parcel by parcel and rezoning basis. You know, the vision has been consistent, and that's a lot of credit to our shareholders. They want a community-oriented environment. They want a community-oriented place where people can go, shop, live. Our intent is to have people living there and being part of the community, using the services. The retail studies that we're doing right now are primarily based on community-based services that would provide people that live in the area services and function as really a bit of a town center and a separate town center. And we believe that with the other amenities, that it's really, it's a seminal project for a lot of us. And again, we've been very committed. We will continue to be committed. We just, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, and as things change, we will have to we'll have to adapt accordingly based on the various phasing plans. But we're very excited. We have a great team, and again, the Van Prop team and our consultants have worked really hard over the last several years to try and get this to where we are, and we really appreciate Planning Committee's support on this. So that's a higher level overview. I'm sure there's going to be some questions, but Chair, that's all I have to say at this point.
All right, thank you. I will open it up to committee for questions, but I'll ask you the one question that one of the delegations mentioned was parking. Is there going to be free parking there for the commercial users? And
we have not determined that yet, to be honest. I think that as we go through I mean, it's a 20-year project. I think what will happen was there will be an evolution of, you know, what the parking looks like, who's driving cars, you know, what the commercial looks like, what the retail looks like. So we have not made that commitment, but that's something that we would be open to discuss as we go through the rezoning process.
all right, I will open it up to committee. Councillor McNulty.
You know, thank you. appreciate your comments and where you are at this stage. A question came up in terms of, and we're going to be wanting to talk about housing. The original proposal doesn't really, things have evolved, as you well know, from 2009. Okay, so we need to talk 2030, not 2020. When will you start phase one?
We're hoping.
Go ahead. When will you start phase one, and can that be the market rental low-income housing building?
As one of the proponents or the applicants for Polygon last night made the point, we will try and start phase one as soon as the approvals are in place. We will be also partnering with other potential development partners, and we will have to work closely with them. The math of building all of the Lima units in phase one as a standalone is something we're looking at, but the economics are very challenging. And so, we're trying to balance sort of a longer-term development perspective, incorporating all of the sort of the issues that the city wants in terms of amenities and housing and market rental, et cetera, with what we need to do to try and make sort of a long-term viable project for us that benefits the community.
I appreciate that comment, and I understand what you're trying to do in terms of juggling. The development isn't just a simple development that's come along. This will be a major development in the downtown core of the city. And I guess my question, the pay parking, I hope it's free parking, but my question, another question I have is in terms of transportation. 180,000 people today are going by your door every morning.
Yeah.
Okay? They're up number 3 road, they're up Garden City, they're up Shell Road, they're up 4 Road, and they come over, et cetera. We went through this when the Oak Street Bridge was on in 1967. So my question to you, have you done an impact study of traffic to go by, not just, you're going to have 8,000 people, they're not all going to live or they're all going to live here, but they're not going to work here necessarily. They're going to be going out to the valley to work, going to the airport, they're going to go everywhere. Have you done any visionary studies how your project will impact Richmond in terms of transportation?
Through you, the chair, to Councillor McNulty, we have done that, and we have Bunt, which are our transportation engineers that have also been working with the City of Richmond transportation engineering, and I think the planning and the engineering statistics that we've got up with would address that issue. But I would be happy to defer to either Jesse Glaze or our planning or our sort of transportation engineer to make absolute clarity on that point, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure, that's fine. Is that Mr. Puskar?
That's great.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, we have done a transportation master plan study over the past 4 years, in which we have been diligently dealing with the city to make sure that the proposed development is compliant with all the performance requirements expected for a project like this, and to ensure that future transportation within the city center are not in detriment because of the development.
Well, thank you for that response, but when we get our 6-lane tunnel, and I hope we get it before you start phase one, is going to cut off your first, one of your transportation corridors to Vancouver. We're going to be back when we had the Oak Street Bridge. So I guess, and I appreciate your comments and where you're at the stage, but I'm trying to get to the realistic point. You can do only so much from paper and textbooks, but you got to go drive the route to know what it's like. You got to walk the walk. And that's something that I think in all these developments with, I'll say Richmond Center and that, we need to walk the walk and to know what it's like. It's great to sit here and think, but the people will come. You build it and they will come. There's no question that you'll be full in no time. Because as you know, Metro Vancouver needs at least 20,000 rooms, if you wish, for people within the community in the next 5 years. And we know people are growing. So I guess what I'm trying to do is make sure that all the things are covered for Richmond in terms of everything from retail plans, but housing is critical for us. Our rental right now in Richmond is 0.2. If you can get a suite, book it, okay, now, because it's going to be gone in an hour. And this is the kind of rental problems we have in Richmond, and this is why it's very key that we have a lot more market rental, a lot more low income. Now, in terms of, I know it's not on this list, but are you going to be selling all the units that are there? How much rental are you gonna put on it? I know we only asked for 10%, but the landscape has changed. By the time you come in there, I brought in the 5% as a councillor and put it forward. It moved to 10. City Centre, if you wish, is 17. As Councillor Steves alluded to earlier, you may be at 20% instead of 10 by that time you come forward. So have you got a contingency plan for more rental down the road?
Yes, we do. We haven't fully formalized it yet because it is 10, 15, potentially longer years out. But we do have a strategy, and we're formulating it now. We're not sure of either the amount or the timing, but it's something we are working on. Yes.
I think that's something that, well, I'm on council anyhow, I'm prepared to negotiate, is if we get bums in beds in Richmond that can be rented, then we can talk about density. I think it's important. I think that's one of the things the city council has the prerogative to do, is trade density for amenities if they want to, and if they have the feeling for doing that kind of thing. And I think if we're really committed to affordable housing, we need to be looking at that. I just wanted to, in terms of the housing, if I may, I keep talking about livability and quality of life. Have you had people check through what you're doing to see that the place is going to be livable and not just, a place where you come in and you've got a 535 square foot room or a 630 foot room or a 900 with 2 kids, and you can't live there? Or you got to live out of your garage or what? Well, not out of your garage in this case, out of your storage space. So, are you looking at fairly generous square footage for 1, 2, 3 bedrooms? Are you at that stage?
No, you know what? Through you, the chairman, to Councilor McNulty, we are not necessarily at the definitive stage of defining square footages, but we understand the city's desires to have various square footages, very different demographic families, very different family compositions. So it's not something that we have necessarily defined at this point, given it's just an OCP, but it is something that we would work with city to help further understand and work and flush out exactly what the city's looking for.
Well, just finish up, make this comment. From a political point of view, I would hope that you would get enough information to start defining things so we know where we're going as well. If we're hoping that you're going to do such and such, and another development comes along and offers the same thing or whatever, we're going to take whatever is going to be on the books to get us to where we want to go with our goals and objectives. So I like to have a little more concrete answers and also give more concrete direction in terms of what the expectations are. And that's just where I come from. So, and that's why I asked about the population projection, knowing where we are, how many cars are going to be there, what's going to be like, where we're going to put people. So anyhow, thank you for your comments, and I'll be waiting to hear from other members of committee and councilors. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions for the applicant from committee? Councillor Day.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for coming forward, Mr. and Mr. McInnes. We're happy to have you here today. So I had a couple of questions. You are aware of the motion we made yesterday regarding the Tennyson Park on basically Sea Island Way and number 3 road, which was that we are requiring a registration of a covenant on the title that requires the ability to rent all of the condo units in perpetuity. Is that something you're prepared to commit to today?
Pardon me? Could you repeat the last part?
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Day.
Are you prepared tonight to commit to a required registration of covenant on the title that requires the ability to rent all the units in perpetuity of the units that would be built on this property?
I think, to answer your question, philosophically, yes. The challenge that we will have is because of the length of the timeline for the development horizon, those will constantly change. So if you're looking for a commitment to work with the city as we go through the rezoning process and meeting those types of requirements as policy issues, absolutely. But it's really hard for us, given the number of units we're building and the timeline associated with it, to say, we can commit to that when it could be 15 years out, and that market may change. But I can assure you that management and shareholders are willing to work with the city to try and find, as policy goes through, what works for the city as well as us. Absolutely.
Thank you. So to be clear, you would need a policy that Richmond City Council would direct staff to create that would require the registration of a covenant on the title that allows for 100% rental on every property before you'd be able to make that commitment.
Can I bring in my expert planner on this, Jesse?
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind, Jesse Gallis? I think Jesse is our Vice President of Development, and he is closer to the planning than I am. So if through the chair to Councillor Day, if that's okay, may I bring him into the meeting?
It's fine with me. Please go ahead, Mr. Gallis, if you can answer that question.
Sure. To Councillor Day, through your worship, Mr. Chairman. So yes, we learned last evening about the policy to have a covenant on title that would require rental of all strata buildings. Like Kim McGinnis, our CEO, said, philosophically, we don't have a problem with that. And generally, when the detailed design stage and further along in these types of projects, they don't come with any sort of rental restrictions unless you're targeting a specific audience. So obviously, we would need to bring that type of decision to our ownership group for final approval, and we haven't had an opportunity to do that, but we are more than willing to have this type of conversation with council and staff about the types of policies the city is looking to bring forward, and from the outlook, philosophically, they seem to be fitting with what we would bring formal in sort of a normal environment.
So basically, given that we've only just decided this last night, and this could end up being a policy, and that's a non-issue because you would just simply have to comply.
Yeah.
So maybe the logical thing to do, given you have not had the opportunity to talk to your owners group, we should refer this back so to buy you more time to make those conversations with your ownership group. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think it's something that we could talk about that it may not necessarily need a referral, but we could speak at it at first reading or at public hearing, and we can continue to make that comment or confirm that as we move through the application process. We definitely can get an answer to you as we move through the application process, whether it requires a referral back to Planning Committee. That's probably not where we need to go, in my opinion, but we would be willing to give you an answer if we were successful in moving forward from Planning Committee to first reading.
Okay, so then to be clear, we could potentially approve this to go to council, and then at that point, that would give you enough time to be able to answer this question definitively.
That's correct. Absolutely. Yes, Councillor Day.
Okay, good.
Well, good. Thank you.
Mr. Craig, on that point, what is the step or the stage in the process that we would ask an applicant to commit to that? So we're in an OCP amendment. This is different from the process we were in last night. It hasn't even passed council. We haven't got, so anyways, where would you see this commitment from an applicant coming if we were to do it again, just so we're kind of clear?
Through the chair, typically I would say that those types of agreements would be registered concurrently with a rezoning application. Having said that, we are registering a number of legal agreements on title as a condition of this OCP amendment. It would be within council's discretion to require such an agreement at this time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Day.
Yes, thank you very much. So we heard from Trinity University that they'd very much like to stay.
Yes.
Would you be able to make commitments to them in the very near future so that they could plan for their future?
What we're doing, sorry, the chair to Councillor Day. What we are doing is there are some key tenants that we've identified that we believe will be very successful in the new retail office component of that portion along Number 3 Road that we're building. And so we have started preliminary conversations. We are not, at this point, we've signaled to the retailers, the majority of the retailers, that we're interested in relocating into the new development. It's not all of them. We will continue to maintain their business model as long as we can. But the retailers that really do produce for us, like Trinity Western, like TNT, we are having an open discussion with everybody that would like to relocate into the new developments. Roughly the same square footage anyway. It's a completely different format though. It would be street front versus enclosed. So some of them don't want to come, but the ones that we're very interested in, we are currently negotiating, or not negotiating, I would say we're having discussions, open, frank, transparent discussions about them being in the new development. And the timelines, we're working through all the timelines. And we've met with virtually every single retailer at the center to explain to them what we're trying to do.
Well, good job for keeping things transparent. So, as you heard, Trinity University, like every other university, one of the biggest issues is housing. Have there been any discussions about student housing?
We have talked about it internally. We have not explored it in the OCP.
Okay. And my last question is, and I know, Councillor, Madam Chair, we're not supposed to ask you about a school zone, but have there been any discussions with any of them? I'm not trying to lead you into how we could have a potential public school on the property.
Yeah, no, we have met with the school district on several occasions. We have talked to them about the site, about what their needs are. The feedback that we got directly from them was that they were looking to reinvest in their existing school facilities and improving those versus going out and trying to acquire a new school location. We would still work with city and the district if that is something that both the city and the district felt was important. And it would have to be, it would not be a normal school environment. It would probably be an air parcel with a shared space on the park or something like that, given the site constraints, but we would be happy to continue those discussions.
Okay, but
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So far, we've met with them several times, and that doesn't seem to be a strong interest for the district.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. So my last question isn't even a question, it's more of a comment. The only thing I'm really concerned about in the messaging is, and you and I have talked about this before, is that we keep talking about a 10-acre park,
Right.
It isn't a 10-acre park. It's a 4 point, where is it here? Yikes, I lost it. It's like a 5-acre park. And then the rest of that 10 acres is spread out in between, along, Lansdowne. There's a little pocket over by Kwantlen College. So I think we need to work on that messaging. I'm concerned that people think, oh, wow, we're getting a 10-acre park at Lansdowne. But in reality, it's more of a pocket, lots of pockets of park space. So I would just suggest that you consider that, changing that messaging, because we don't want people to be disappointed thinking they're getting one thing when they're actually getting another. So just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a question to staff about student housing dormitories. Is that allowed in the official community plan right now, in their zoning right now?
Through the chair, the current zoning on the property does not allow for any residential use. In terms of the OCP amendment, a dormitory is considered a residential use. It would be permitted through future rezoning applications.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from committee? I don't see any other questions. I do have a question for staff. So we've been talking a lot about affordable housing, low-end market rental, and, given the discussion how this plan is over a long period of time, and, staff, you've told us that there is a report coming back in Q2 on affordable housing and the 10% on what it could be. Will we see some information about the benefits of having the affordable housing contribution come in the earlier phases? Like, for example, in smaller developments, we quite often ask and do get the affordable housing in the first or second phase. I mean, that's a benefit to the city, it's a benefit to the residents. Given that this project is over so much time, has there been any thought to how we could see some of our affordable housing needs met over a long period of time?
Through the chair, I'll take a stab at the question. In terms of the provision of affordable housing, we would work through the details as part of future rezoning applications. Where we are dealing with large parcels of land that would involve multiple buildings in one distinct phase of rezoning, we do look to front end the affordable housing, similar to what you saw last night with the Polygon proposal, where all of the affordable housing is in phase one. The one word of caution I would have is if you were to try and lock down the 10%, for example, across the entire site as part of the first rezoning, you would then lose the opportunity to pursue a greater percentage of affordable housing in subsequent phases. But with each individual rezoning application, we will look and work with Mr. McInnes and his team to front load as much of the affordable housing as possible in each distinct rezoning phase.
That's really good. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to that report in the future. All right, so Councillor Day, you had a referral, did you? Or you wanted me to come back to you with something?
I would like to, I'm a little confused. On one hand, if we just push this through, we could give the applicant an opportunity to work on that motion, which is, to allow, to require rental housing as a covenant in perpetuity. So I don't know that we need to refer it back, Madam Chair. I think maybe we let this go through to council, and then that gives them the motivation to go ahead and be able to answer that question next week.
All right, I have, let's see.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, the recommendation has been moved by Councillor McNulty. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Thank you very much. And so this will go to council on Monday, February the 8th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both to staff and council, for helping us through this. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5, Farming First Strategy Update. And before we start, Mr. Conkin is going to speak to this item. And as many of you know, Mr. Conkin is leaving us shortly. So this will be his last attendance at a planning committee meeting. And we are very sorry to see him go, but we all wish him the very best and hope that he'll keep in touch with us. So please, Mr. Conkin, I turn it over to you.
Letter. I thought the chair tore up that letter.
Well, if I may, through the chair, it's been a real honor to work with this council, and it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed every minute of my time with Richmond and the challenges and the accomplishments we've achieved as a team of council and staff. I've greatly appreciated every opportunity that we've had. So thank you. I look forward to seeing you perhaps as a citizen on the street sometime, and we can catch up that way. So thanks. So, if I may, Madam Chair, just briefly, we brought the then agricultural viability strategy to Council a couple of years ago, looking to update it. It was referred back to staff to undertake it as an in-house update, which we have done. We took a very hard look at existing policies and existing direction in that strategy, tried to streamline, become as efficient as possible in the document. We have taken out a number of actions that were not things the city could actually take on, tried to focus on actual things that the city and our staff and our committee can actually achieve in terms of their work and their work plan over time. We've tried to come up with some innovative ideas as best we can, looking at the goal to activate farming. And we see a strong role here for our economic development team as well as we move forward in time to look at prioritizing farming as an ongoing industrial activity in the city. So I have my team here of Mr. Hopkins and Mr. D'Souza who will help answer any questions that committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conkin. I'll open it up to committee. Councillor Day?
Thank you very much, Mr. Conkin, and you will be missed. We love working with you. We're reading the letters that we got from the Richmond Food Aid and whatnot, and Farm Watch. And the thing they seem to be really focusing on is a local food hub. Do you envision that being a possibility?
Through the chair, I think that is a real opportunity and a possibility through implementation of this strategy as we move forward. To date, we've had, the Kwantlen Farmers Market. We've had opportunities for local produce, et cetera, to be accessed by the public. We see that is a potential moving forward in various locations across the city. As those opportunities appear, I think staff will bring those before committee and council to look at endorsement to just achieve just that, more access to local food. Absolutely.
Okay, and the other question I had is I spent a lot of time before the border closed down in the Portland area, and they really promote their local farmers. They have maps, and basically you can just go through all kinds of rural or urban areas, rural areas, and buy everything from strawberries to honey to whatever. Do you envision through Richmond City and through maybe tourism coming up with a plan like that where we could really focus on letting people know what's in our own backyard?
Through the chair, absolutely. I know that we are seeing an increased number of agritourism type activities in the city. We have, for example, the lavender and honey farm that's going to be opening soon on Steveston Highway. Those sorts of businesses, we take inquiries on those all the time, and our staff are always as supportive as we can be in clarifying how they need to meet bylaws, business licensing, etc. So as for a map, I think that would be an interesting idea, and I know that has come up in the past,
yes,
and I think we will be working.
I thought we were working on that already, because I think this came up during the signage on farm property, and I thought we were going to be looking at something like that already.
To the chair, we are working with our economic development staff as well as the food security committee. We will be looking at something like that in the coming months, probably leading up to this year's harvest season.
That's great. Anything else, Councillor Day?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's key, and Councillor McPhail, definitely the chair, brought up the point. We've been really asking for this for a number of years, and I think if not now, when? The local signage, local maps available everywhere. It's just going to let people know what's out there, and if we don't support our local farmers, we risk losing them. So I think this farming strategy goes in the right direction. But if I understand it correctly, this is a working document. It's not etched in stone. It'll be, adapted over time as we come up with more brilliant ideas.
Through the chair, that's correct. I mean, the last one was adopted early 2000s. We'd like to see this as a living document that has more updates as we go, working with our community, our committee, and local farmers to identify new areas we can continue to support agriculture.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor McNulty, then Councillor Steves.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, let me turn you on. Sorry.
I want to echo the same similar comments to Councillor Day. I somehow just, having read the report, it's a good report, it's a good technical report, etc., but it kind of leaves me a bit empty. How much input have the farmers had to this? Those people that are, and I want to ask you, how do I define on page 647 legitimate farming operation? So how much input have they had to this document? Hello?
Sorry, through the chair to Councillor McNulty. We've had consultation. I guess two phases of consultation throughout the process. The first phase was through Let's Talk Richmond and a series of public open houses. Through that, we found that there was a low percentage of people who represented farmers or folks that lived in the ALR. So we actually did a second round at the beginning of 2020 that targeted specifically people who lived in the ALR and farmers. And we did receive a bit more feedback at that point. I believe on page, let's see if I can find it here. It's on page 689 where we, PLN 689, where we talk about the consultation. We received submissions on Let's Talk Richmond from a total of 166 people, 140 during the phase 1 and 26 people from phase 2. The 26 from phase 2 would be all farmers, and it was a way to try to get more feedback from the farming community.
Just want you to know, our page 689, you need a very powerful binoculars and microscope to see it. You can't read it, but anyhow, I appreciate that. I think it's very important that we address and we include the concerns of the farmers that we've been hearing over the years, and we put them in the document if we are truly supporting the farmers, and especially in the harvest season. In my opinion, we've had this issue with signage, and Councillor Day talked about promotion, et cetera, et cetera. I don't care whether they put a 4x8 sign out in the middle of the field and let traffic come by. I think we have to have special dispensation to let people know that the berries are in season or this is in season or whatever it is, so that the public knows, and not just put our little 2x4 signs. And I'm waiting for that report back on that, because I think we have to go beyond that. The other question is, we have not defined in here bona fide farming. What is bona fide farming? It's interesting, I did a survey of the farmers in Richmond that I could name, and I came up with 20 of real farmers that are either ground farmers, do nurseries, dairy farmers, beef, oriental vegetables, etc. And so we're talking about encouraging farming. These are the people we've got to support. So I'm looking at the report. I think it's a good start for a working document. I suggest we look at it and we look to improve it. And hopefully council members will, committee members will look at it and how we address it, and offer some suggestions for possible change or enhancement. For example, I'm going to page 650, and I appreciate where staff's coming from. You talk about liaising with upper levels of government. We need to lobby upper levels of government for action, because the upper levels of governments don't do anything. It's like housing and those kinds of things. If we don't bang their door, they're not going to try to do anything. And I think that, so the word up, for example, I would change that on objective 2 from liaise to lobby, or liaise and lobby, whatever. to put that in there so that we're constantly fighting for the farmers. And the same as other organizations. So from my point of view, I think it's a good start. I'd like to see more feedback. We need to listen to the farmers that are actually farming. And we've got anything that we have in terms of soil base. I think we have to continue to support them. As has been pointed out one time, 85% of our food is imported. So those that are farming from a soil base in Richmond, we've got to keep those people going and encourage them to continue the good products. And the other thing is too, we have to encourage people to shop there and buy there. It's great to say we do it, but when we take the basket of strawberries from, and I won't pick a particular franchise, but when it's imported from somewhere else and you have the same basket a mile down the road that you can pick up, then you should buy a mile down the road, even if it costs you 50 cents or $1 more, as opposed to picking it up at the local supermarket. Anyhow, thanks for the work that you've done, Barry. Thank you very much for you and your team and Sean and company. By the way, Barry, we have your phone number. Okay, thanks very much.
Councillor Steves.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Barry, we've been around together for a long time, and I don't recall giving you permission to leave the room, right?
Coffee, we'll talk about that, Mr. Steves.
Yeah, there's Mr. Steves, yep. Anyway, congratulations on retiring, and we certainly look forward to conclaving across the street in the future. I'm very pleased with this report. You know, when I said there was a half a dozen things I wanted to see done before I retire in a year and a half, this is one of them. And it is a blueprint for the future. Yes, there was a lot of input from farmers on this. In terms of the farmers AAC, which was small farmers and large farmers, I think there was more input from that group in this document than anything that the AAC has done since the very first one was done in 2002 when Bruce May and his group were involved. The people in the ensuing years weren't as active as Bruce and the ones that put the first document together. And so I think that they've done a marvelous job of drafting up a blueprint for the future. The only difference I would have now, and that's in terms of the food hubs, fisheries has recently been added to the Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm hoping that we'll make a little addition in the future before I leave in the next year and a half, and that we are able to organize maybe a food hub in conjunction with the Stevenson Harbor Authority. We have Skipper Autos and various others that are going to be establishing just south of Chatham Street along 6th and 7th Avenue area there, and I think we're in the process of developing some kind of a food hub. And I'm hoping that might fit into the plan as well. But in the overall, I think weeding out things we can't do and emphasizing the things we can do, I think that, and certainly suggesting some things that we should never do, which is coming on very strong, for example, in this report, on not allowing farmland to be lost at all. I think it's a very good report, and I'm very pleased to be able to support it.
Councillor Au.
Yes, I just want to raise a question. I think this report is very good. Thanks to staff for that. I wonder if we can
Can't hear you very well.
Okay, my question is, can we have a policy to encourage or require supermarket of certain size, the big ones, for example, to have a section for the local agricultural products?
Through the chair to Councillor Phil, I would have to suggest no, we cannot require private business to sell local food. I think that would be a role that our FSAC, our Food Security Advisory Committee, as well as our Economic Development team should probably be pursuing as we move forward, is trying to encourage more local produce to be present in those markets. I don't believe that we could legally require that to be in place.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I think the farmers market can only do so much. And if we can have a constant outlet for the local products, I think that would be very encouraging, right? And I think that would also be make it more available to the public. So I understand that we cannot have a policy or make it into a requirement, but I would say that perhaps there's some way we should pursue. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, through the chair to staff. I have a number of concerns I'd like to raise. So I'm not on the committee, so I'm unable to vote today, but I'd like to raise some concerns as I thoroughly went through the report as well. So I guess we'll just start in the main report. I was wondering if staff could provide an example that relates to the page 647, the environmental sensitive area development permit exemption for new farmers. I wasn't present at the Food Security and Agriculture Advisory Committee, but did you provide them with an example? So I think of a new farmer being someone who isn't an existing farmer, who doesn't have evidence other than that they've submitted a farm plan and they've gone through that aspect, and then they get approval to be exempt from the ESA protection that would overlap on their lands. Do I have it understood? Do you have a similar example that you deal with on a regular basis?
Through the chair, I'll begin, and perhaps Mr. Hopkins and Mr. D'Souza can chime in as well. So what we often see, Councillor Wolf, is a new farmer, i.e. someone who has not farmed in Richmond before, who purchases a parcel of agricultural land and would like to both farm and build a single-family dwelling, typically on a currently either a vacant property or a property that has an old home. So our guidelines and our practice is if you have no proof of farming in Richmond previous or on this property, you are required to submit a farm plan prepared by a professional agrologist. That then shows a farm home plate, typically any access to the backlands, and a farm plan of how they will use that land. This is an exemption that's been in our OCP for a number of years based on the needs to balance a variety of provincial legislation, i.e. what's known as the Right to Farm, which is the Farm Practices Protection Act, which is generally seen as a paramount body of legislation to say that the right to produce food for the local economy and for the province is an important part of using this land, so that we have balanced which legislation trumps, if you will, but looking to ensure that this is a legitimate farm. This isn't somebody who says, yes, I'm going to farm and throws in a little bit of vegetable crop and then throws in a giant house that we had in the past, or the maximum house size you can build now. So we try our best to ensure that if you're telling us you're a farmer, we want you to show us your commitment to the farming. So that is typically where we have a single-family house and or with an ESA, and they are then allowed to clear the ESA. That's the kind of thing that I've been involved with. Mr. D'Souza, any other examples that you could share with Councillor Wolf?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, just to clarify, although agricultural activities are eligible for the exemption process for ESA, residential uses are not. Any residential uses that are encroaching into the ESA area would still be required to go through the ESA development permit process. So this only applies to agricultural activities.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. And just to follow up on that one through the chair. So as we've seen in the last little while, often the first phase of a farm plan is to bring in soil and make a few $1 million in tipping fees. For this to be a new farmer, to do that, to be granted the exemption, and mostly being to fill a whole property, and they have no, we have no understanding of their background other than what a professional produced for them. I find what this does is actually erodes a major protective role that the city has in play right now, and this policy will undo that one. So that's how I see it, and I appreciate the clarification and the examples there. The next item I wanted just to relate to that is just a page over 649 under the theme 4. So the policy and when you went out to consultation, there were the 4 themes, and the theme 4 is agriculture and environment. And again, looking to objective 2, that first action, trying to balance between agriculture and environmental objectives. That's what we have as a theme. There's an objective there. There's an action. And again, I think what I've just brought up, it erodes the possibility to have that action. We're not going to have a balance because we have the existing farmers who can trump the environmental use, and now we're going to add the new farmers on top of that. So I feel like that action it loses a lot of credibility with the other action. Moving out of the report now into the actual strategy document on page 664. I have a couple things to say on that page. So at the very bottom of 664, again, same theme, agriculture and environment, objective 2, the part C there talks about exploring opportunities to promote the relationship between agricultural activity and biodiversity. What examples do we have, or have you presented, or was there anything else at the public consultation to go along with that point? I'm thinking of one as being the support for farmers who do cover crops for snow geese. Would that classify? And do you have another example for me?
Mr. Hopkins, I'm wondering if you could perhaps chime in here with the consultation results. Sorry, with the consultation results? Perhaps Mr. Wolf's question.
Yeah, and actually I was going to defer this to Mr. D'Souza just because I know this came up through more staff consultation rather than through a public consultation. I know, Stephen, if you're able to respond to the question from Councillor Wolf.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, this is a result of looking through development applications, considering options for landscaping or planting species that benefit agriculture in some way, whether that be pollinators, filtering dust and spray, solutions like that have both agricultural and environmental benefits.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, just to follow on that, I walked the Shell Road Trail with 30 students today, and we could see the benefit that wildlife was providing to the farms. So there was a number of mallard geese that were going underneath and keeping other pest numbers perhaps or weeds that were growing early to help support the bluebird crop. And part of the reason the wildlife are there is because there's riparian areas that are protected on the adjacent sides. And up till now, farmers and new farmers have helped to allow that to continue. But again, I think this policy is going to allow farmers to push in one more extra row, but not have the evidence and the support that that's actually going to benefit them, because they're going to lose pollinator and have other potential pest infestations when they make further move to a monoculture and lose the diversity in the area. Through the chair, I just have a couple more short points, if I may. I'll carry on to page 674. It's the sideways table on 674. And in the first column, so just to remind you if you're on this, the first column is the existing policy, and the middle column is the proposed policy. So what I see here is this policy is going to, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this one, I hope I'm wrong, that the current OCP actually has some good strategies that will be lost and not in the new. So here's what I see. In that first column, under the theme 4, objective 1, the third bullet, it has things such as leasing agricultural lands, and the next bullet is mechanisms to compensate farmers. So again, I'm thinking about compensating farmers who do cover crops for snow geese. Maybe you can give another example. But do those move to the new policy? I didn't see those specific examples stated in there. Or are they what Mr. Conkin was referring to as items that the city doesn't have control over? So could that be addressed?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf.
Thank you.
Yes, this is one of the areas identified that are difficult for local government to implement, specifically the Right to Farm Act, as Mr. Conkin mentioned earlier, provides farmers the right to conduct agricultural activity on their land. So these previous policies that were in the OCP were identified as one of the, in that category of difficult for local governments to implement.
Okay, thank you for that. Just the next short point is just to direct attention to the Planning Committee members. On page 678 is the map of the ESAs for that also overlap with ALR properties. And just to know, like, ESAs aren't protected by Parks Committee or in other things. It's protected by or in the Planning Committee's discretion. So if you're looking at that map, you can see how much the overlap is between ESAs and edges or large tracts of agricultural land. So that's an important piece that you're making mention of today. And also in the report, I didn't see anything that mentions the Richmond Ecological Network Management Strategy, which has agricultural area as one of the strategy area. And even in there, I feel what we're doing today might impact some of the area opportunities that our staff have already found in that document. Things such as requirements for environmental sensitive areas, which, as I just pointed out, are more likely to be lost with the changes that will be made. Just moving on to the last two short points. On this one, I don't know if staff can see it or read it. It's in what was referred to as really tiny print. On page 681, of all of the survey respondents, the one that got the highest percentage for being very important was Theme 4, Objective 1, Policy 2, but I can't seem to figure out in the report what was that Policy 2 question that got the most important response from the public. Do you have that available? So I see it on 681, but I don't know where that Policy 2 with the 83.9%, where does that one come from?
Sorry, through the chair to Councillor Wolf, could you say again what the objective and policy number was?
Theme 4, Objective 1, Policy 2.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, based on my records, that's referring to coordinating with engineering on the implementation of the city's dike master plan and flood protection management strategy for those areas where dikes involve or protect agricultural land.
Great. I'm glad that was a high important one. Thank you so much. And the very last item through the chair to staff is on page 711. This is the very last page, I think, of the whole report. Very last page. With what we decided on Monday at the general purposes meeting and the new draft soil bylaw, I know that's not finished yet. It was the direction kind of on Monday, but we don't have we have right now a $15,000 limit for the security deposit. Staff was recommending we go up to $200,000, but some around the table were hoping that we could have a no limit. And the reason why I'd like to see if there's a staff comment, if that would then reapply here, because like I heard, it's a bit of a fluid document. So maybe whatever that new soil bylaw security deposit would be, it would factor into this page, perhaps. I'm not sure. And the reason why I bring that up is, yes, I know we can tell a property owner to put it back the way it was, but you're not going to put peat back that took 10,000 years to form in that way. So again, the value for having a no limit, especially for a very large operation that would permanently impact peat soil. So is there any comment, where would that get input into this section of the bylaw?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, I don't know that we would actually put it into the bylaw, but again, we are committed to working with community bylaws, with engineering, and with other departments that do have a role to play in how we support agriculture in the future. So whatever decision is made ultimately on that soil bylaw will be captured and reflected in implementation of this strategy moving forward. We'll ensure that we work with those bylaws and with those strategies to make sure that we're consistent
and meeting council's objectives as well as the needs of the farmers.
Happy retirement. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
All right, I don't see any other speakers. I just have a couple of comments. I wanted to thank staff very much for their work. Like Councillor McNulty, I was a little bit disappointed by the turnout by farmers, but I think this report really reaffirms our commitment to farmers and farming, and I think it speaks to some of the issues that we were hearing from farmers, you know, in the community, like the viability of farming, the importance of innovation, and like the infrastructure issues like irrigation and drainage. And I would agree with the comments made about, you know, promoting local farmers and produce. And I sure hope we can have some of that work done in time for this year, because I think more than ever, people are going to be looking again to supporting local and, you know, buying their produce that's grown here. Now, we do have one speaker. Now, Councillor Steves, is your hand up again? And Councillor Au, is your hand up again? Did you have another question? Okay, we do have one registered speaker. Laura Galanders, Richmond Farm Watch, are you here? Hello? Oh, she's there. I can see her name. Yeah.
Oh, hello?
Hello.
Hi, sorry, I had to unmute.
All right, good afternoon. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
So, my name is Laura Galanders. I'm a Richmond resident, and I'm speaking today on behalf of myself and the local farmland advocacy group, Richmond Farm Watch. We appreciate and support the new Farming First strategy and the staff recommendations. I think it really addresses the challenges and goals that we have today, and it's a great update from the last one that was done in 2003. We submitted a letter which should be in your package, and there's some quite clear, actionable items that could be added to the strategy, and I'm just going to speak briefly about them, particularly the idea of the food hub. So, you know, there is a great need for more facilities to process local food, right? Like we talk about buy local, people love to use those phrases, buy local, eat local, support your local farmer. But without licensed food processing facilities, farmers don't have a way to get value-added products to the market. Value-added products is really important for farmers to be able to make a better margin, because selling produce, you know, you're stuck at that raw price for the produce. So if any farmers want to make pickles from their extra cucumbers or sauerkraut from cabbages, sauces, anything that's going to be fermented, canned, it needs to be produced in a commercial kitchen to be legally marketable in a local store. And also, like the farmers that produce our local food, they're not large-scale export farmers. They're generally smaller scale, and so they don't have large walk-in coolers or areas where they can process food to be sold. So it could be very, very useful. Yeah, and it wouldn't all just be used by farmers. It could be used by local food producers, such as bakers. Like we know of a baker who produces amazing baking and has a clientele and sells out of her home. But for her to be able to go and use a commercial kitchen, then she could actually get her goods into a local store, such as Save on Foods, for example. So yeah, the Ministry of Agriculture announced that they're going to be spending $11.6 million over a 5-year period from 2018 to 2019, and then from 2022 to 2023. And they've announced 3 food hub partnerships so far. So we don't know if there's still time to apply to be one of those partnerships, so that's something that the city could look into. It suggests that they're contributing about $750,000 per initiative, so it sounds like there would still be some room, but yeah, and in our letter, we did mention that an ideal location would be the Garden City lands, but I have thought about it more since this, and also in the FSAAC meeting last week, just realizing that parking is going to be very limited on that site. City could consider other locations, and that was really exciting that Councillor Steves mentioned possibly partnering with the harbor to do it through fisheries as well. So it could be an underutilized building in Richmond that just needs renovation. So my suggestion would be that council could direct staff to look at possible locations for a food hub in Richmond. And then, so on the Farming First strategy, under theme 5, objective 2, so on the page 666, where it says to liaise with upper level of government, I would suggest adding a point at the end that said, explore partnership opportunities with the provincial government to bring more local food processing ability to farmers and food producers and or fishermen in Richmond. And on the staff report, item number 7, to prepare a letter signed by the Mayor to the Minister of Agriculture, I suggest that included in the letter could be an inquiry into the Food Hub Partnership Program that the Ministry has announced to find out if they're taking applications. Yeah, and then in the staff report on page 7 under theme 2, objective 2, actions, the page 648, the section about working with developers to integrate urban agriculture into development projects. This is where the points 2 and 3 in our letter could be added, where developers would add commercial kitchens to developments as a public amenity space. So this wouldn't be like the large commercial food hub, but rather a place where people in the community can go to process food for their own use or sharing. So this could really address like food security, making food accessible to people. Like if I gave a neighbor 3 boxes of apples from my trees and they live in a 1-bedroom apartment with kids and pets, it would be difficult to process, right? So access to a commercial kitchen. Yeah.
Right.
So
to
access to
wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just about done. So access to a commercial kitchen would be somewhere to process food into sauces or canning, like for personal use, or if someone wanted to put on a beneficial charity dinner for people, they could use this commercial kitchen to do that. Or it's a good idea for a public space. And the other point that could be added is in that exact section there is to establish as an online city-based resource an up-to-date list of rentable commercial kitchens and co-packers within Richmond.
Thank you. Your 5 minutes is up.
I was done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you.
All right. I did want to ask committee if under number 7, it talks about the staff be directed to prepare a letter. Now, would the letter also include the Farming First strategy itself? Is that to staff?
Through the chair, or to the chair, yes, we could, if endorsed by council, we could provide a complete package of the work that's been endorsed by the council.
And I think it would be also a good idea to copy to our MLAs and MPs. I don't know if the MPs need the letter to the Minister of Agriculture, but I think a copy of the Farming First strategy would be important for them to see as well. So what do people think about that? All right. Okay, so there, all right. All right, hang on, we have a couple hands here. Councillor Steves. Councillor Steves.
Oh, yeah, it just took me a minute to unmute. A question, I'm wondering, staff, I support everything we're doing here, but in terms of the food hub, I understand that one of the food hubs is for fisheries. I'm not sure, but I think it's Port Alberni. And it'd be interesting if staff could check that out before we send this on, because if they have approved a food hub around the fisheries at Port Alberni, there's a good chance they could approve one here. I guess we could send this on without that, but it'd be nice to know if that's exactly what the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries has done.
So we
that's my
give
comment.
staff direction or make a referral that staff look into that and report back.
That's what we want to do. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we'll come to you at the, we'll make that a separate referral at the end then. Is that all right?
Thanks.
Yeah, Councillor Day?
Madam Chair. Okay, so I was hearing what Ms. Laura Galanders was saying about the province having $750K for each application for a food hub. What would it take for us to qualify for that kind of funding? Would we have to have a shovel-ready project? What would it take?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I think we would need some time to explore that directly with the ministry, and we could report back to council with an update in terms of what the program entails, what the criteria are, etc. And maybe we could report back with that with the information on the food hub in Port Alberni.
All right, thank you. Just question. There's a suggestion in the memo from Richmond Farm Watch was that food hub could be on the Garden City land. Is that allowed in the ALR area?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I am not sure if it would be. We would have to take a quick look at that in terms of the Agricultural Land Commission regulations. And I note that Mr. Todd Gross has just gone live with his camera. I believe there may be some comment in terms of the Garden City programming as well.
Well, Councillor Stevens is going to make a referral that we look into the food hub, you know, refer this to staff. So I think all those questions, you know, what is the criteria, what is the location, all that could be handled in that referral. Mr. Gross, did you want to add something?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, sure. I was just going to add that we do have a food hub identified as part of the legacy landscape plan for Garden City lands. We did do some preliminary work as part of a kind of architectural review back in 2019. I think it identified a barn, educational facility, and a community kitchen. Just preliminary work, that's as far as we've gotten, and obviously that is dependent on ALC approvals and council direction going forward.
All right.
All right, seeing no further questions, so we'll get to the recommendation in our package, and then we'll go to Councillor Steves. The recommendation in our package with the minor amendment to number 7 that copies of the Farming First strategies be included, this be copied to our MLAs, and copies of the Farming First strategy be sent to our MPs. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor McNulty. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Second, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. Now, Councillor Steves, your referral is to refer to staff to look at the viability of a food hub and report back with all the questions that we just kind of discussed.
That's right, exactly. Locations, including a food hub in conjunction with the Harbour Authority, and whether or not there's one at Port Alberni, and what the requirements are, and the benefits that we could have from the promise if we do it. The whole story.
Moved by Councillor Steve, seconded by Councillor McNulty. Is there any discussion, Councillor Day? No question? All right, is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is carried. Thank you. And were there any managers' items under your manager's report today?
I believe none here through the chair, no.
All right. Well, again, Barry, we wish you all the very best. Hope to see you out and about in Richmond, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, looking for adjournment.
Good luck, Barry.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Good night.